Hello everyone, Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel, and today I'm going to be talking about the new album from Pandorum, Art of the Devil. This is the fourth full-length LP from the one and only Sven Selka, aka Pandorum, who continues to motor forward as the prominent figure in Deathstep music. Amazing to think at this point, over 4 years since his first album, how far he's pushed this subgenre forward. Not like they're a load of practitioners of the style across the bass scene, but the way that he's continued to delve into it himself across many a project, whilst bringing a group of others along with him on his Crow's Nest label, I think, speaks volumes for how far he has pushed it. Since his last LP, Videodrome, September 2018, there's been a decent amount of branching out from him, I would say, reaching further into the bass mainstream with a load of work for Disciple Records, and also testing out different styles, whether it's house or D&B, exploring the rhythm format and more. So going into Art of the Devil, I wondered how much of that experimentation we would get on it. Would it be another big Deathstep outlay from him, or an exhibition of his sound in different forms? And safe to say, it's almost entirely the former, and it's leaving me with some pretty mixed feelings. On the one hand, it gives his biggest fans another collection of Deathsteppy songs to enjoy, but for someone like me who wants to see him experiment more and push his sound further, I think it falls short. Not only that, but a lot of the Deathstep we get here I feel like we've heard many a time before, which you can find across the LP, but seems especially the case on tracks like Inferno and The Reaping. The heaviness on the former, Inferno with 10 graphs, is very straightforward and doesn't do very much. And whilst I appreciate the jumpy presentation on The Reaping, it is again, for the most part, very standard ideas-wise. I mean, solid Deathstep tracks, but which don't bring anything new to the table for the genre, and quite unremarkable. That's tracks 9 and 10, but we also get it near the beginning with 2 and 3, Purpose and Forgive Us. Purpose builds extremely well, patiently, and gives the impression that it's gearing up for some D&B, but it turns out to be another stomping Deathsteppy drop, and it sounds like a lot of stuff he's done before. I mean, it's solid, but yeah, sounded like it was going to be D&B. The second drop is delivered very effectively, it's constant, plodding, but the overall impression with this tune, again, straightforward. Forgive Us I actually find to be a fantastic example of how good Selka is at changing pace in his drops. The scattergun delivery in the second half of the first drop and start of the second drop is blistering and needed at that point. But the other half of the heaviness is more staggered, full-on Deathstep. Powerful, but I've heard it before. Also interesting, as a comparison between Purpose and Forgive Us, is how identical they are structurally. The giveaway being the drum breakdowns in the middle of each one, which are practically the same in both. I mean, he could have had them not next to each other. The worst offender, however, would have to be the middle track, number 7, Eclipse. The heaviness here is dreary and laboured, a bit whiny, and the muddiness of the production doesn't help at all. The quick-fire progressions I also find quite jarring here, and whilst the second drop is more staggered and stuttered, a bit more impressive, doesn't quite save the day. There's also near 40 seconds of silence at the end here. Might be a mistake, I'm not sure, but not the best way to round it off. So those tunes considered, I'm looking for stuff that's gonna liven the album up a bit, give it some flavour, pizzazz, spice, all of that. And we do get that in abundance on Art of the Devil, even if the ideas still feel very familiar. The title track and introduction to the LP is an emphatic way to kick things off here. The layout of notes is fantastic. The steadier, grislier second drop works well in contrast too, A statement maker at the beginning, which is very welcome. Sacrament is another I feel I've heard before, but as a combination of elements, I think it works particularly well. The drops are the same pretty much, but he keeps it varied enough within them that it remains entertaining throughout, meaning the repetition is welcomed. I also love the high-pitched cries in the background, just very solid stuff. Similarly, track 8, Streets of Rage, feels noticeably rounded and whole here for him. The sound is pretty impressive. The progressions drag a bit, the final drop is a bit plain, but the general feel is that of the production really standing out. The closer, Soldiers, runs the risk of seeming a bit too loud and exclamatory. The snare is also a bit off, but there are some lovely glitchy touches on show to carry it through before entering the final sequence of the whole LP. That leaves a selection of tracks on Art of the Devil that for me push that little bit further with their ideas comparatively. We have tracks 11 and 12, Purge and The Hunt, which are good examples of him pushing the Deathstep sound just a bit more. The pinprick industrial drop on Purge with Quiet is wonderfully executed. Doesn't do loads, but a welcome change, I think, at that point in the album. As a development, the second drop is brilliant as well. Note placement is very clever, and it just takes the track to a whole new level, in my opinion. You then have the RAVE theme of The Hunt, which again is very welcomed at that point in the album. Some ideas here aren't all that, the first drop in particular, but as a mix of sounds, it excels pretty much throughout. Especially love the twisted wubs in various parts here, and the gnarly, quick-paced second drop is a nice switch as well. On that note of quicker tempos, track 5, Illusion, supplies another dose of Code Pandorum house, a follow-up to his track The Devils from last year, made clear by the pre-drop sample. What is it again? You will see devils tearing your life apart. The Deathstep here is quite laboured, and the house itself doesn't do all that much, even though it does pick up from drop to drop. But it's just so nice to hear his sound in different formats, you know. I find myself crying out for more of it when I hear drops like these ones. The track with the most all-round exceptional appeal, though, would have to be Fade to Black with Volgatron. A rare tune for me, in that the good is so good that the not so good is easy to ignore. Because it isn't perfect, you know, the main idea for the double drop, pretty drawn out and not that strong or impactful, but everything else is just so riveting and clean cut. Insistent, drilling dubstep, and it hits so fucking hard. The wubs we get laced throughout here as well unleash his style in a new way, I think, kind of making it a modernised version of his usual approach. It's the vocal as well though, you know, Volgatron comes through with such a typically snappy and alert feature, perfectly matching the immediacy of the instrumental. And it does basically everything you would want it to as a combination of the two. Talking of vocals, Art of the Devil is another Code Pandorum LP full of them, whether it be other vocalists or samples. A few here where I can see what they're going for, but I'm not sure they fit quite right. Snow White on Eclipse, Kid Buki on Streets of Rage, Adam Stone on Soldiers. The personality is there, but whether they complement their respective instrumentals is another matter, I feel. Quiet's vocal input on Purge, however, I think really works, whether it's creeping below or right at the front. Especially love the introduction here, where the dynamic and flow between his voice and the music is tops. Oh, the flow is just... Sample-wise, I think my favourites arrive on Sacrament. The God in Heaven just before each drop is, fuck, it's so good. Let me play it here. Mean! And on Purpose, the refrain of, I have been given a purpose, is eerie, Code Pandorum in full flow. It's horrifying and I love it. Can't forget the other sections on the album, once again extremely important in Selka formulating his sound. Whilst they all work in creating atmosphere and providing a foundation for the evil of his music to be felt, most of the introductions and outros do feel like variants of one another, all haunting or gloomy or spooky in some way. However, there are some that stand out. The opening to the album, for example, on the title track, how those wubs wind up and unravel, so well done, and the industrial clang of the outro is also really nice. Illusion has a voyaging feel to it in the beginning, which really gets you in the mood for the house to follow. Just journeying, voyaging along. Sacrament is the beginning and end of a war, the intro and outro, making you feel like you've won a battle by the end of it. The cold, wintry opening of Streets of Rage is time-stopping. The extended rave sequence bringing in The Hunt is tops as well. And I have to mention the ending to the LP on Soldiers, a classic, heavenly, choir-like section, and such a fitting way to end the LP, I think. The way the outros generally mirror the introductions here, I think, also gives a nice sense of completion to the album overall. Yeah, just a little point there. I mean, it's a lot I've talked about here, and I could go on way further, but for me, with Art of the Devil, it does ultimately boil down to one thing. Either you're going to think this is another great outlay of Code Pandorum's sound, what we know him for, and therefore I love it, or I feel like his sound deserves to be experimented with much more, and this felt like the perfect opportunity to do so. Even though there's experimentation here, I feel it's drowned out by stuff I've heard a lot of already. Songs blending into one another, not really offering that many new ideas within that style of music. For the most part, it ends up sounding to me a bit too similar to the albums we've already got from him. Could also argue that structurally it's a bit too formulaic and predictable, not venturing beyond introduction, build, drop, midsection, build, drop, outro. I do get that it's difficult for him trying to juggle those two things and get a balance. If he goes full out with the experimentation, he might lose some die-hard fans, so it's a difficult risk to take. But I personally do think this was that point, 3 albums in, where the fan base is loyal enough that such risks could be taken. There is a lot of good here. For one, as I've mentioned, it tailors to those who want another hefty dose of Code Pandorum Deathstep, of which there will be many. I like how there isn't a track under 3.5 minutes here. Each one has its story to tell. And we also get one of my favourites of the year here so far in Fade to Black. The experimentation we get is good, the atmosphere is dark and menacing and maintained throughout, and it's another album that really feels like him. But more than those things, Evolution felt like the next step. It's a solid Code Pandorum collection, but is it him levelling up? I'm not so sure. An album can be whatever you want it to be, of course, but for me, it's a chance for an artist to push boundaries, and whilst there are glimpses of that here, it feels more like just a collection than something with distinct album factor. It leaves me wondering what he wants for Code Pandorum as a whole. If he isn't transforming his sound in a big way 4 albums in, then when is it going to happen? Is his goal simply to create a Deathstep legacy, or to branch it out far beyond what he's known for as well? Which I think his style deserves. I love what he's done to bring Deathstep forward, and the back catalogue for that type of music is huge now, and it's thanks mostly to him. But on the back of Art of the Devil, I'm left thinking more than anything that time for big evolution with his music has come. Now, in terms of my favourite here, I think as an outright banger and great tune, I would have to go with Fade to Black. But for a typical Code Pandorum kind of number, which we get a lot of here, as I've mentioned, I would have to go with Sacrament. And for recommendations, if you enjoyed the album, then I would just look at past Code Pandorum albums, really. You'll find a lot of similarity ideas-wise. I think the production isn't as good. It's better here and has got better over time, But yeah, ideas-wise, I would just look at his past stuff. But there we have it, my review of the new album from Code Pandorum, Art of the Devil. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. But what did you guys make of the album? Which track is your favourite of the 13? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell along the way if you are yet to. My social media accounts are linked in the description box down below, and I will link some other album reviews here if you want to check them out. But yeah, until the next one, guys, keep it naughty, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.